Hi, I'm Gloria Perez-Stewart of GPS Law Office, and I've sent out a few updates to parents, parents I know, clients, former clients, and thought I would do this video because why not? So I'm here at home. I'm stuck at home, and for those of you who do know me, well, he might be my son. My husband retired from SpaceX about 6 years ago, and who he now runs a nonprofit, an aerospace nonprofit that I helped him start. He may not, my background is in nonprofit management, so he runs that out of our home. He just likes to work from home. I think they do have a couple offices, but it's been challenging working both of us from home, but it's been very challenging. So lucky us. A lot of things have happened in the past couple of weeks, and I wanted to kind of debrief, talk to parents a little bit about that. On March 13th, and I'm talking specifically about California, just so you know, and specifically really about LA and LA County. A few weeks ago on March 13th, we got notice that schools were going to be closed, and they didn't really have a time frame. I think they originally told us 2 weeks. And, everyone was in a scramble. Some schools got Chromebooks and that kind of thing, distance learning information, and many didn't. And then about a week or so passed, and then on March 21st, I think that we had some guidance that was issued out from the Department of Education on FAPE, on free and appropriate public education for children with disabilities during the COVID-19 crisis. And that guidance warned schools against declining to offer distance learning in order to avoid its responsibilities, right, under special ed law. And it emphasized that students with disabilities are still entitled to a FAPE, but that the delivery of those services must be consistent with the needs, right, to protect the health and safety of students with disabilities. So that gives the schools really a lot of leeway, which is understandable at this time. And this is something that I'm having, I feel like I'm having the same conversation over and over with families, and this is why I'm doing this video. So this means basically that your child's IEP is not going to be implemented the same way it would be if school were in session. It's just a fact. We have a public health crisis. This is what's going on right now. Now, if the school chooses to provide services online, this was sort of as of March 21st. We're going to get into actually what's happening now. But as of March 21st, we were saying, hey, the school's doing distance learning things online, then this is what they're also going to have to provide those same services, those same education to children with disabilities, right? Or access to that education. Okay. So then we get into the fact that then other things happened, which was super exciting. On March 17th, so this is actually before the March 20th guideline, SB 117, was passed by the California legislature. Now that law waives several, not all, but several state special education timelines. And it really impacted, right, our kids with disabilities, their special ed right. It waives, which basically means a pause of the timeframes, which are really important for a lot of us. Many of those special ed timelines while public schools are closed due to COVID-19, I'm adding numbers here. So SB 117 in California considered schools closed even if they offered independent study, distance learning, or both. The timelines, what the SB 117 says is that the timelines for special education start again once schools reopen and when the regular schools starts again. So for us now that we're looking at the fall. So what's interesting about SB 117 here in California, and it's something I haven't seen much analysis on, I will look, maybe I need to write something. Maybe I don't need to. Maybe I don't need to add more to my plate. But SB 117 does not waive any federal requirements imposed under the federal IDEA. So that is interesting. Okay. So here we go. And then we have March 21st, we have the Department of Ed then puts out their own thing. Then what happened is on March 27th, the CARES Act, I'm just going to say it, I'm going to call it like somebody would call it, it's coronavirus, the bill that was passed, that was signed last Friday. It was a week ago, feels like a lifetime ago. Now that allows Secretary DeVos to propose some new things to Congress, and specifically for her to say, hey Congress, I'm just gonna be very informal because that's who I am. Hey Congress, we're going to now, maybe we should waive some of these federal guidelines. So again, so the layers are here in California. You've got SB 117, you got schools being closed. Then you've got SB 117 passing, waiving some timeframes, but not only state, not federal. Now, then we get a Department of Ed guidance. Then we get another, after the CARES Act passed on the 30, I'm sorry, it might have been the 27th. It was right after the CARES Act. Then we got a supplemental thing, and I'm trying to find, if I can, that supplemental thing for, the supplemental guide that was sent out by the Department of Education so that I can read it to you. But of course I don't have it right on my, yeah, I don't. Okay, so I have this though, just for those of you who are watching, I do have this up on my website, and you should follow me, GPS Law Office on Twitter, Instagram, and Facebook, because we do put out quite a bit of information as we see it and as we, you know, sort of see fit. So it would really help parents to understand a little bit more of what's going on, particularly when we put out action alerts that are put out. I am not an advocacy organization. I am a law office. I'm a law practice. But because of my extensive background as an organizer and a nonprofit, you know, I'm still on nonprofit boards. I do get a lot of information, so I want to always give that out to people. But basically, so that supplemental thing that was put out, supplemental sheet, I'm calling it a supplemental sheet, that was put out by DeVos right after the CARES Act was interesting in that it said, hey, school districts, you can't bypass these timelines. Sounds good, cool. Except now we've got the CARES Act that is passed, and we are really likely looking at the fact that Secretary DeVos is going to recommend to Congress that we waive these federal guidelines. So one of the boards that I used to be on, one of the places that I used to be on the board of was COPA. And I swear, why can't I find anything when I need it? This is my fault. So COPA put out recently, or just like in the last few days, I'm going to go ahead and find their alert, but they put out an alert asking parents to reach out to their representatives, and that our kids' rights are at risk. We need to get on that, and this is why. And this is basically what you need to be telling all of your representatives at this point is no on these IDEA waivers. It's super, super important. I'm going to see if I can share my screen now. Share screen. Here we go. So here is the COPA guideline, and if you look at it, it says, so it's an action alert. So here we go. As you know, Congress has told Secretary DeVos to propose provisions to IDEA to waive because of the COVID-19 school closures. She is developing her recommendations now. Now, what I know in my conversations with different school districts and different, I actually was talking to a special ed director of a smaller school district yesterday, and, or maybe, yeah, it was yesterday, and he was, they are pushing, obviously, for these federal guidelines to be waived. And this affects everything. This affects your assessments. This affects your IEP timelines. This affects, filing due process, everything. So something that you need to think about. And what COPA is saying, and what I agree with, is that Congress does need to hear from us. And, telephonic IEP meetings can be held. I do have a couple of smaller districts that are doing that. The larger ones, it's interesting to me, the larger ones are somewhat, the other ones who know that they can drag their feet on it are dragging their feet on it. So this is what's happening. So I'm urging every parent I know, everybody, and even if you're not a parent, even if do you care about people with disabilities? Do you care about other people? This is basic. These are people's education. Our children got the right to be educated after everyone else. And I tell people this quite a bit. I tell people this all the time. We treat people with disabilities in ways that we would never treat other groups of children. And I mean, looking at them like, oh, you have to earn your right to sit with all of these other kids. Really? I mean, and I'm a woman of color. Would we say that to children children of color and say, hey, you can't sit at this table unless you prove this, this, and this. So there are basics where we segregate children with disabilities, and this is one really, really key piece here in that you do need to reach out. I will put more of this out on my website just so you have it, but these are there's a background. COPA does a really good background of it, and also tells you how to find your senators and your representatives. So I urge you to do that. Now, in the interim, what I'm telling parents is, there's a lot. Routine wise, you know, we all know this in terms of keeping some routine, but I really, you know, for the moms who are calling me and stressing about homeschooling, and I get it. And I'm going to tell people what I do. I'm going to tell people what you know, how to think about this. I'm not, and I made this choice many years ago with my son because I was advocating for him. It's why I went to law school. It's why I'm a lawyer now. And the bottom line is I'm not a therapist. I am not a teacher. I am not a trainer. All I can do, and you know, all I can do at this point is I wanted to step back a few years ago and say, I'm mom. I just want to be mom. And I really am urging people to remember that and to think that, you know, not to, your child with you is pretty much probably getting the one-to-one instruction. So what you should do is think, you know, depending on how your school district is treating it. Now, you know, some of your districts are holding IEPs, and that's great. And you need to do some kind of interim plan for now. Going forward, if your school district, let's say, is not communicating with you, if they're one of these districts that is, you know, not giving any sort of guidance or anything to you, you may want to reach out to your IEP team. Everybody whose information that you have, you may find that a related services person is going to respond to you before the campus people will. You never know. So I really urge you to do that in terms of getting some kind of, you know, assistance or some kind of guidance with your parents now. I mean, for your child now, excuse me. Now, that's one piece. The second piece is getting yourself like a spiral or something, some just basic, and each day starting a journal basically, and what you did with your kid, what your kid, maybe they did only 30 minutes of instruction, maybe they did 10. I don't know. Every child is different. And, you know, and how I'm taking it is day by day with my son. We're shooting for, you know, a certain number of hours. And if we get there, we get there. If we don't, and he's having a crappy day because he's upset about not being able to go out or not being able to, you know, do his regular routine. It's what it is. My son has disabilities and we are managing as best we can. Second part of this little journal thing that you need to be keeping track of though, and this is really key in terms of future compensatory services and anything that you might need, really need to keep track of any regression that your child is getting, any kind of services that you're paying for. And really, you probably want to talk to an attorney or an advocate about that if you do decide to pay for private services, because there are things that you need to be doing in order to preserve your rights for that. I think that's it. The other things that I'm telling parents is, you know, I'm taking it day by day. I did not expect when this month began that I would be homeschooling my child with disabilities and running my law practice. So that has been challenging, and working from home and stuck at home. So there's a lot, you know, I do, you know, it is a privilege to stay home. So I'm going to say that I do have family members. I come from a very working class family. I think some of you know that, very working class. And, you know, some of my family members can't stay home. So, you know, it is a privilege, and I'm remembering that. And I'm having very frank conversations with my child, social stories, trying to teach him in terms of what is really going on out there. And the fact that remains is that if something does happen to him, I can't be with him. And that's, you know, heartbreaking. And that brings me to another point. Remote estate planning. Yes, I am doing that. I want to be clear on some things. I don't do third party special needs trust, which is basically when your child maybe has a settlement, maybe you have a car accident, maybe, you know, a settlement somehow. That is money that goes directly to your child. I don't work on those. I do third party special needs trust where you are leaving assets or whatever to your child in the future. I also do basic wills and advanced care, healthcare directives, and so on. So we are looking, part of the estate planners groups that I'm part of estate planners groups and special needs planner groups, because they sort of meld together. And one of the things we're looking at is how to be creative in terms of signings, because you do have to sign some documents that does have to be witnessed, and what does that look like? And we've done quite a bit of research on, how that can be witnessed in the state of California, how that can be remote notarized in the state of California, and if it can be. Some things can be in California, some things cannot, even though our state does not do remote notarizations. We do other things that are allowable. So everybody's, though, will, estate, everything is sort of different. You may be a single parent, you may be married, you may have multiple children, blended families, whatever, what have you. You may just need a very basic thing for your peace of mind. Everybody's different, so I really can't give much advice on that right now, or at least in this particular video. If you do want to do a consult, though, with me, please feel free to schedule that at my website at www.gpslaw.net, and you'll see schedule a consultation, and you can schedule a 15 minutes, so I can tell you if I can help you or not. And if I can't help you, I will refer you to, who I think would be better suited for you. I don't like to work with people who aren't going to be a good fit, and you shouldn't either. That's just basic. So I think that's it. If there are any other things that I think of in the next couple of days, I will record another video. I'm probably going to be doing these every few days or so. And again, feel free to follow me on Facebook, Instagram, or Twitter at GPS Law Office. So that you can get these updates and information of when I am doing these. If you have any questions, particular questions that you think I should be answering on some of these videos, feel free to email me. Gloria at gpslaw.net. All right, and I hope you stay safe. Please have a good night, and thanks for tuning in.